Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at this 100%, we were told, virtual session. And then there is a room full of you, and I am not there. I'm Kori Kanayama. I believe that you are looking at my face on the screen. Welcome. I'm going to ask our tech person Dominic to get the poll on the screen whenever he's ready. And while he's doing that, I'm going to introduce our panel for this webinar workshop session. Give me a moment. All right, so I'm going to introduce everyone. There are 6 presenters, and then I'm going to introduce Gisela last, who is going to introduce me. So here we go. Monica Joe is the Senior Racial Equity and Inclusion Program Manager with NPH Northern California. The introductions will be very quick, and everybody will have their presentations later, and then they will say more about their roles and what they do. And Anne Silverman, she's the principal consultant. Thank you so much for the poll. Of Anne L. Silverman Consulting out of Boston. Victoria Wong is project manager with Mid-Penn Housing, based out of the Bay Area, I believe. And Ari Beliak is the CEO of Merit Community Capital. And Gisela Salgado, Leadership Development Programs Director, California Coalition for Rural Housing, CCRH for short.
Hi, and hi everyone. Yes, I'm Gisela Salgado, and it is my great pleasure to introduce Kori Kanayama of Kori Kanayama Partners and a consultant to CCRH as well. So I also have the pleasure of working with her, and I'm just very grateful that Kori was able to submit a proposal for this workshop and actually get it approved so that we can have the space and the opportunity to engage in this conversation regarding talent recruitment and retention in our affordable housing field. Thank you, Kori.
Thank you so much, Gisela. It's an honor to be here with you all and everybody participating virtually and in person at this conference to talk about us, the people of affordable housing in California. Welcome, everyone. How are we doing on the polls?
I think we still need more people to respond to the poll, so please keep going. We have about 3 responses so far.
Right. I see in the chat folks are coming in and entering their names. Thank you so much.
All right, looks like we've relaunched the poll, so now we're getting more results.
Excellent. Thank you, Dominic. So this is going to be, we really wanted to make this an engaging and inclusive experience as on the webinar platform. So we've got more polls coming up. We were gonna do it on Mentimeter so that you could put in short answers, not just multiple choice like this. And there'll be places to ask your questions. We're gonna encourage you, please, to put your question in the Q&A box, not in the chat. The chat is for conversations. Poll is closed, it says. Okay, so I'm gonna, well, you see the result of the poll? Do you all? Looks like we've got non-management folks, people who do not manage other people is what we mean to say with that. 31% managers, 31%, senior managers, 13%, executives, 25%. I should be the independent consultant there, and I failed to do the poll. So here we are. Okay, did we see the result of the first poll?
I think that's the only poll that we have loaded for now.
Great, thank you. Let's get going with the presentation, please. Thank you, Rhoda. All right, just to make sure you're in the session that you wanted to be in, this is, we're gonna talk about connecting talent recruitment and retention to organizational management mindset shifts, which is a mouthful. So we will start by talking about what this means, and then we will go into different presentations. Next slide, please. Okay, and we did the introductions already. Next slide, please. Actually, just go back a minute, please. I just wanted to say that we came together because we were in our different roles. We were all seeing the same thing, and that's why this is the theme. I just wanted to say that. Any of you want to add something here? All right.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say we all represent different geographic areas, and yet still the same patterns. So you'll hear more about that.
Yeah. Great. Next slide, please. This is the outline. I'm sorry it doesn't look better. But so we have, this is our answer to doing an engaging webinar. And so we will just jump from one thing to the next. And please reference this when you need to know where you are. Okay, next slide, please. So here is our main message. I will read it, and I would really like if all our speakers, any of you, to say their part. We saw that providing individual training, including technical training, to folks is not enough. We think we really need to support executives to help them improve organizational structures and management to be able to keep folks, to make the workplace an attractive place to stay. And then we address DEI and recruitment and retention at the same time.
We have a minute here.
Yep, I got it. Thank you. All right, I'll say a little bit more. So it's doing, I think the pivot or the innovation we're talking about is doing those things at the same time and connecting, not separating DEI as its own silo, and not look at recruitment retention as just an HR thing. It all connects at the organizational structure and management thinking. All right, next slide, please. So this is where I invite all of you to chime in. I think I don't need to read this. This is pretty self-explanatory. By revolving door, we mean that we could invest in folks to do great work in affordable housing, and they may still decide to leave. Ari, Gisela, Monica, anybody?
Sure. I'll jump in for a second. I think we're talking about here is we need kind of an all of the above strategy, right? So we need to recruit and retain, train people within our industry. We need to make sure that people understand that this is a great industry that people should work for, and we need to create a culture such that people want to kind of work and stay within this industry. And that touches a lot of areas, and I think that many of our organizations. I apologize if you hear a vacuum in the background in my hotel room, despite looking like I'm in a beautiful place in San Luis Obispo. I think so. For too long, many of our organizations have been focused on kind of recruiting and retaining their own talent, and we need to make sure that we look at this as an industry entirety and be happy when we are kind of recruiting or training people, and they go off and they do bigger and better things. Because bottom line is that we're all in this for the cause together, and that we really need to kind of like walk that walk and talk that talk, right? Which means that means trying to create the best culture you can possibly have within your organization, so that all people want to stay and work and grow within your organization, as well as provide opportunities for people once they've done really well, but there's not a place in your organization anymore for them to go on and go someplace else. And be very successful there and likely come back, and it's all part of the cause. And so each organization itself needs to focus on being really great and being a great place for everybody, right? And that's everybody, and I think we forget that sometimes. And also, we need to look holistically at the industry.
And I think what I'll just add. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Monica.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ari. And what I'll just add to that is that you'll hear from some of us about the great strides that we've made in bringing people into the industry and creating a steady pipeline of people joining. But I think where we're really challenged is retaining people, making sure that they're being supported in an industry that's very challenging, that's very it's a very robust industry that we have, but we're also facing an uphill battle in our overall goal to create better affordable housing. And so people can lose themselves in the work and feel like things would be much better if I just moved to the private sector. And so we are seeing talent that is bleeding out. And I think that that's attributable to so many different aspects. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And over to you, Anne.
Thank you, Monica.
Reiterating that, when I talk to people entering the field, and I do that quite a bit here on the East Coast, I talk to them about not a straight line. If you think about traditional HR growing in an organization, and our organizations are small, there aren't always places to grow within an organization, but just like you're seeing in California, we see the same thing in the Northeast. There are opportunities to move around within the field, to build your skills. And as Ari said, what's important is to keep people doing this work.
Correct. Thank you. It's like holding a container of us seeing ourselves as a sector. And even if someone left my organization because the person didn't have a place to move up to, that person could go to another affordable housing organization. That's a win. Okay, so next slide, please. So this is another one of the areas where we're saying, instead of doing it separately, connect it to if we connect it to organizational management, not see it as a silo where you hire a DEI consultant or have a conversation that is specific to holding up folks of color or diversity, see it as a part of organizational issues that all take a process to address, and that again can feel overwhelming by itself, especially to CEOs and managers. Seeing things at the same time together I see it as a potential for opening where answers come, especially if you're listening to the folks within the organization. Thoughts? Gisela?
I agree. And Monica and I are actually going to talk more about some of the programs, as she mentioned, that we have already introduced, have been operating in terms of bringing new talent into the field, and also the challenges of retention. And one of the things that I want to say now is that we have been hearing and going through a stakeholder engagement process with emerging leaders at nonprofit organizations in the rural affordable housing field, with executive directors, partners, academics, and really centering historically marginalized voices to really ensure that everybody's informing the new programming that we are developing as we speak. And that is meant to really provide an opportunity and the space to be able to connect it all and think for the organization and think together on how to solve some of these challenges.
Something that I can add to that is that I was actually in another webinar where they talked about, this was a podcast episode talking about how creating an inclusive and sense of belonging within your organization actually helps everybody. It helps attract talent from all around. So even if you might be trying to support the BIPOC folks who are in your organization or other measures of diversity, making an inclusive organization actually ends up just attracting people in general, because if they feel like this is a place where people are included, then whatever identities they're bringing to the table will also be included as well. So having your diversity, equity, inclusion, whatever you want to call it, we have all kinds of acronyms now, having those efforts be really integrated into how you're approaching creating your organization actually pays off in dividends in so many different areas, not just retaining talent of color, but also just retaining people overall. And so we really want to hit that point home that DEI should not be a separate siloed activity, but really should be inherent in how you're developing your organization. So.
Great, Monica. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. I think we might, let's get through the next slides. And so this is, we're saying that the chief executives need support too, to do this, that what we're talking about, and that they have, by position, they are isolated in their organizations. And so they really are, they benefit from connecting to their peers and being able to exchange ideas and have their safe space to share, to talk about this. Who wants to chime in about this? Ari?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I think, so there's two messages here. One is you should always feel comfortable talking with your ED or CEO, right? And every single person has a leadership role to play within an organization, and every organization should kind of empower its people in order to kind of communicate what is necessary for that organization to be successful. That's what a successful organization looks like. And then also being an ED or being a CEO can be actually a very lonely job. And there needs to be cohorts of people where we can kind of sit down and honestly talk about kind of many of these issues, because they're not easy. And oftentimes we sit around and talk about how we develop projects, how we get financing, or how we do lots of other things, but there's really nothing more important than our people. Our people are the ones who do everything. And that's something that ZDs and CEOs, we are all focused on it, but we need to be more focused on it. We need to be kind of working with each other in a cooperative manner to make sure that each organization is the best organization it can be, and that our industry in general is supportive of all people.
Thank you, Ari. He is a CEO. Okay, next slide, please. Each one, we could have lots of longer conversations, but we have an agenda to do today. And so I think what connects here is because CEOs tend to feel like this is their job. They need to figure this out on their own. They may not feel like they can consult folks within the organization, but the opportunity is that everybody at whatever position that they have within the organization, they would benefit from support from peers, from folks who understand what it's like to be in their positions. And so this is we're repeating our call to see ourselves as a sector. It's win for the sectors as opposed to win just for the organization. It is a switch. I'm also learning that this looks different for different regions, and I think it would be cool for us to figure out what this looks like in California. I think we'll be talking more about this in the following presentation. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, great. So I think that was the end of the moderated part. So I am seeing the Q&A window empty. Am I right? So I think let's, yeah, no open questions. So let's go to Anne's presentation. This is Anne led this national study that was commissioned by NeighborWorks Northeast region. Go ahead, Anne.
Thank you, Corey, and thanks for inviting me to share with all of you. In the course of this study, I learned from a number of you, and I recognized our common problems and issues. I came to this study from complaining in the Northeast, saying, we can't find people. What are we going to do? We need to help our organizations. And let's look and see what's out there and how we might tie those pieces together. And you'll hear very common themes to what Corey has already said. Okay, next, what you'll see, next slide, is we looked at community development and other fields and tried to identify what people were doing across the country to address recruitment, retention, and leadership development writ large, and also looking at particular issues in terms of BIPOC people and how can we do better in various ways. So we looked at a number of programs, we did follow-up interviews, and we evaluated success. Next slide. I'm sure some of these themes will sound familiar to all of you. I always hear people saying it's really hard to find qualified project managers. We could have a whole conversation about what we mean by that, but we're not going there today. The competition from the private sector for skilled staff and leaders is intense here in Boston, and I know it's intense where you are and in many other parts of the country. People say it's really hard to find a diverse pool of talent. Again, we can talk about that. And I think our work still remains under the radar screen, particularly for young people growing up in low-income communities. People should know about community development careers. We're doing better than we used to, but not good enough. Next. So we looked at the challenges to recruitment, retention, and leadership development and kind of put it on a continuum. And as I said, I think we're doing a better job exposing people to community development, but we can probably do better. We're not really in many cases, helping people see community development as a career in high school. And as many of you say, it just pops into your life at some point. I think we've done at least here, and I'm sure there too, a good job getting people in as AmeriCorps members, as sort of entry-level workers. But then they leave. And why do they leave? Because they're not supported, because their supervisors never supervise, many different reasons that we need to address. I'm finding more and more people these days who are mission driven saying, well, okay, you know, I was the first in my family to go to college and I was told to become a banker or an accountant. But I want to get into community development now. How do I get in now? And some folks will say, well, you can't because you haven't done a LIHTC deal. Well, that's a problem. We have to figure out ways to get people in mid-career, and we need to find some alternative ways of coaching and training folks. We are losing people mid-career, as Corey already mentioned, here, there, many places, and certainly one piece of that is organizations are not inclusive enough, are not welcoming enough, are not finding enough ways to help people grow within their organizations or within the field. Similarly, on the senior level, it is pretty hard. It is really pretty hard to come in on a senior level. I have seen it happen. Some people coming off of a board and coming into an organization. Compensation is certainly an issue for some folks, but it's also just maybe there's problems on each side, and maybe we can be a little more welcoming of different people coming in. And we certainly need to keep people on the senior level. We are having people retire, and that actually presents some really interesting opportunities. New leaders don't have to do things the same way those who went out or are going out did it, and we can find some ways for distributed leadership. Next slide, please. So very, very briefly, when we looked at the problems, we also looked at the solutions. And as Corey said, it's piecemeal. One of the best we saw is what Gisela and Monica will talk about. You've done a really nice job, California Coalition for Rural Housing, in terms of introducing people to the field relatively early in college. We've seen some other programs that are also getting people in, both the Keene Fellowship here in Boston and a really interesting program in Milwaukee that has tackled the whole issue of why aren't there more people of color in real estate, with a series of training programs and a support network. Mid-level, we see some programs, I would argue maybe not enough, but certainly NALCAB and National Capacity as national programs have reached out to potential leaders in their affinity group communities and tried to support them to grow. Similarly, Enterprise Foundation in New York really worked with some mid-career folks already in the field to help them grow. And the problems we see there, if we can just go back a second, those are great, but not enough. And timing is always an issue. So we train you, there may not be the job that you want when you're ready. Leadership development on the senior level has been done well through a number of programs. I'm sure you know, Achieving Excellence. But again, the support structure is thin and the internal organizational pieces are done separately. And then we do have some good examples of those. So how do we tie these things together? Next slide. What you'll see is that we need many of the programs that work, engage coaches and mentors People learn with a cohort of peers. People network with colleagues and alumni over time, and I emphasize that over time. Keeping up those connections makes a difference. Programs that work focus on individual growth and development, but they also focus on the organizations, and they provide those organizations with enough resources, time and money. And I'd say those are major challenges, but if you want to make it work, that's what you need to do. Next slide. So we could talk all day about our common themes, but we need to continue to look at strategies to recruit a diverse group of entry-level candidates into community development. We need to find better ways to retain mid-level people and keep growing them in the field. And we need to continue to recruit a more diverse group of mid to senior level candidates into community development and support their success. Next slide, please. We do have a full study with more detailed information about a number of the cases and about our recommendations. You can go to our website, annlsilverman.com, and click on the study, which is at the bottom of the first page. We're continuing to work on this issue in Greater Boston, and we really would love to continue to share with all of you. Thank you. Next slide.
And thank you so much. Great. I am seeing that there's a new question up. Okay. I'm going to read it. I'm an architect in the affordable housing field. We definitely have burned out and QA issues with tight design, permitting, construction deadlines mandated by funders. Is there broader discussion advocacy opportunities to amend some of those restrictive timelines that are leading to burnout and quality issues, especially as projects get bigger, more complex, or harder to get approved and meet budgets with labor supply chain shortages? So this is a question that is about, you know, the structure of the work, the shape of the work is difficult. Okay, so Monica's gonna take it. Take it away, Monica.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. Perfect.
I'm gonna pass it to Ari. I see him.
Okay.
So
I also have some thoughts when you're done.
yeah, I don't have any specific. I mean, I think we all every single day need to figure out how to make our jobs easier, right? In every format, we need to constantly iterate to get better. I mean, this panel, we're talking, you know, we're funding HTI, we're funding a bunch of programs in order to train people so that they can be better at their jobs. And that's one component of the industry that all of us need to focus on training kind of each part of the industry well, and then figure out how to work together. And I think that there is focus on this. We'll never finish, and we should never think that we're going to finish, because you can always improve. But there is focus, but it's not enough. And keep on complaining, but just make sure while you're complaining that you're also doing something to make it better. So that's on the end.
Yeah, I would say that's what our advocacy is about, right? We have our support organizations here in Massachusetts. It's the Mass Association of Community Development Corporations. And, you know, the Housing Development Committee, like every time I go to those meetings, people are talking about exactly these kinds of problems. And then it's like, okay, here's the problem. Now who's going to do what? How are we going to advocate together to streamline? Yes, permitting in the city of whatever is a disaster. And we all have to figure out which pieces we can do in addition to the pieces of supporting each other.
Thank you, Monica.
Nothing to add to that. but that is also why we have, why I'm happy to be working in a membership association, because you do need that regional support, that sort of industry-wide support, so that we can convene people together who have these common issues, so that we can try to transform some of the systems and structures that are in place. And I feel like we're often in a competitive environment in this industry, but working at NPH, we get to see it at a sort of like a more bird's eye view, and see if we all actually just work together and try to advocate for a bigger slice of the pie rather than everyone fighting for the small slice, then things would be a lot better. And so really try to lean on your regional entities to really support and how we can more effectively do our work. So thank you.
Yeah, I would just summarize that as the thinking is switched to thinking as a community or sector, as a group connected, collaborative thing, instead of suffering individually, like talk about the problems. All right, so next up, let's get going with Monica and Gisela's slides.
Oh, I think we have our Mentimeter poll next.
Oh, okay, great. Sorry about that.
So here we go.
Okay.
Yes, everyone can participate in this one. So I can share a little bit. So we'd like to hear from everybody how you actually got into this field. I saw some people say in the chat already that maybe it was through an internship. Maybe they heard about it from a friend or a professor. We just would like to know, for the folks in the room, if you can join the mentee poll accidentally.
Love it.
That's great.
Yes, so it's in the chat, mentee.com. The code is 57020020. Well, it's working. Look at that, Monica.
Seeing internship opportunities are common. Yeah, internship's the largest word, which means that multiple people have submitted that word, which is great.
Yeah, I wish I could participate. Yes, everybody, I'm encouraging all of you to
Oh, a speaker, you heard it from a speaker in college. See, that's really great, because we're trying to bridge more connections to the schools so that people hear about this field at an earlier stage. So please take that to heart, that just sharing some words in front of students can have a huge impact on their careers. Thank you.
yes. Yes, we're gonna do we're gonna invite all of you to express interest in mentoring at the end. Please stay till the end, and we'll do a survey link. Oh, I love Econ 101 during fall 06. That's impressive.
All right, shall I close this out?
Sure.
Thank you. Oh, wow, more answers. I love it.
Well, it's
Trayvon Martin. Wow. Okay.
yeah, just
Yep.
there are several different generations together still doing housing. I think that young people have so much to add. Okay, Monica and Gisela, let's get the thank you presentation going.
All right, so Gisela and I are going to do a joint presentation, and I will introduce myself first. So I'm Monica Joe with the Nonprofit Housing Association of Northern California. I'm the Senior Racial Equity and Inclusion Program Manager. And so if you don't know, NPH has been around since 1979 and has been the collective voice of affordable housing for the Bay Area. So we're a membership association made up of nonprofit affordable housing developers, but also funders, planners, businesses, contractors, advocates, and many others who work to realize our mission mission by advancing meaningful critical policy solutions and strengthening the affordable housing community that implement the programs and policies in our Bay Area communities. And so at NPH, equity is really at the core of our mission and rooted in all of our work. And as the largest convener of the Bay Area's affordable housing industry, NPH takes seriously our efforts to advance racial justice. And in challenging ourselves to be a strong anti-racist organization, we launched a racial equity and inclusion initiative in 2018 that builds upon previous work and continues to refine our racial justice goals and our focus areas. So we work towards goals of racial equity and inclusion in 3 key ways. 1, we work internally by creating a culture of belonging through inclusive organizational policies and procedures at NPH. 2, throughout the larger affordable housing community through our program offerings, such as events and trainings that support change and transformation. And 3, advocating for public policy priorities that redress historical harms of the racist housing system to advance housing justice. So that's a little bit about me and my organization, and I'll pass it to Gisela.
Thank you, Monica. Yes, so my name again is Gisela Salgado. I am the Leadership Development Programs Director at the California Coalition for Rural Housing. We have been around since 1976. And CCRH is a statewide coalition of rural nonprofit housing organizations and housing developers, including the largest producer of self-help housing, which is self-help housing, self-help enterprises. We support the development and preservation of affordable housing through our advocacy work, technical assistance support, leadership development programs, and research. CCRH, like NPH, is also deepening its own commitment to racial equity work. And we are engaging in a 3-phase process to raise more racial equity awareness among our board members and CCRH staff, so that we can ultimately create a racial equity strategic plan to ensure that we are embedding throughout the organization and throughout all the programming that we need. And Monica and I are actually very excited to be presenting together, as this reflects the partnership and collaboration that we have been carrying for the last 3 years, since we are following similar trajectories in our racial equity work, our own internship programs. We collaborate often and actually putting together training sessions for interns, and that has been proven very valuable to both of our programs and our cohorts and organizations. So we want to continue to show that collaboration across organizations is very valuable and enriching.
And
Thank you.
that picture in the background here, that's both of our cohorts of interns combined. And so we're really lucky that we can partner together.
Okay, next slide, please. So for the last 25 years, actually, it's incredible, 25 years, CCRH has been leading a phenomenal internship program. It's the CCRH Rural West Internship Program for Diversity in Nonprofit and Community Development. I know it is pretty long, but as the name implies, the intention of this internship program has been to bring more diversity into the rural housing field, specifically affordable housing development. So we recruit students of color, rising seniors from undergraduate college programs throughout the state of California, also Washington State and Oregon. And we place our interns with a nonprofit housing developer for 1 year to learn about affordable housing development. Again, we have been doing this for the last 25 years. And as Anne explained in her own study from Networks America, this is a great model and a great entry point for folks to learn about the field, to really consider it as a career path, and to be able to give back to the communities that many of us, including myself, reflect. I'm also an alum of the internship program, and I'm very proud of that. We have been able to graduate over 200 students from this internship program, with at least 50% staying in the field immediately upon graduation from the internship program. However, we see that we actually start losing folks at mid-career level. And that is something that we're going to talk a bit more in the next slides. But now I'm going to pass it on to Monica to talk about her internship program.
Yeah, thank you. So our internship program is called BAHIP, BAHIP, Bay Area Housing Internship Program. And we are very fortunate that we were able to model our internship program after CCRH's internship. And so the principle is still the same, supporting a whole year of a paid internship for college students of color to learn about affordable housing development and project management. We just focus in the areas of the 9-county Bay Area. And so we're pretty much operating in the same exact way. We've had some great success. We're now in our 4th cohort, about to kick off our 5th. And so we're definitely much younger than CCRH, but we've been able to benefit from the lessons learned from Gisela operating her program for so many years. So we're going to now transition into some of the problems that we're still seeing in the field after doing these programs. So you can go to the next slide and I'll pass it to you, Gisela.
Thank you. Right, so after 25 years of operating this amazing internship program, we still see a lack of retention at mid-career and executive level positions. That is a reality. We still seek not only a lack of retention, but diversity in executive and senior level positions. That is an issue. And because we're losing folks at mid-level, it's really difficult to continue to grow someone and be able to have a pipeline of folks that can move into those executive and senior level positions. We see staff burnout, which I think it was also mentioned in the chat. Our world is very complex and we need to be able to support and provide support to staff. And the way that folks are asking for that kind of support, and again, I'm gonna quote the stakeholder engagement that I mentioned earlier. We are planning to launch a new leadership program that is going to be targeting that mid-career level folks to provide more supports. And this goal of creating opportunity for advancement in our field and to actually create the opportunity for folks to be able to compete for senior level and executive level positions. And so some of the things that we hear from folks in the field who are in that mid-level and other levels of the organization really is the need for more training support to actually have the space to be able to take advantage of training supports, to be able to continue to develop those technical skills that are so needed in our industry, especially in affordable housing, and to also look at it in a holistic way. We have piecemeal interventions. Organizations may be doing different things. As we heard, there are internship programs, service learning types of programs, but it's really important to look at this in a more holistic way. And what we mean by that is not only providing, for example, the technical skills training that I already mentioned, which is needed, and folks are mentioning that they would like to see more of that, but also providing the opportunities to grow, to be able to exercise leadership, and to work collaboratively throughout the organization with managers, with executive directors, and again, provide a space to build relationships. Relationship building is so important. And we see that when folks are unable to connect to the broader organization and even their team, it's easier to leave because they're disconnected and isolated. And so that's very important to create the space to be able to do that and feel a sense of belonging, for folks to feel like they can bring their whole self to the organization. BIPOC and other marginalized communities feel the need for that, to be accepted and to be able to bring their whole selves to the organizations that they work for. And like I said, opportunities in the space to practice leadership skills, for example, having the opportunity and the space to serve on a board. And that is just an example. And again, and being able to work collaboratively across the organization and different positions in the organization. I think that's what I'm going to say about that for now. Go on to the next slide, please. Okay, so how can we change the way we view leadership development? And again, we're going to offer some ideas that have come again through a stakeholder engagement process that we have been leading. And I know that in Page, Monica has been leading a similar process with their membership and the people they work with. So let's go on to the next slide, please. So here are our responses to the issues that I just mentioned and I don't mean those to be exhaustive. There's probably more that we didn't mention, but here's the response. So CCRH is creating a fellowship program that we're planning to launch at the end of this year. And again, this is going to be targeting or serving entry-level to mid-career housers in housing development departments. And we're going to be providing training, and it's going to be a combination of technical skills training and leadership training, coaching, and mentoring for all the participants in the program. We are asking and requesting the participation of not only emerging leaders to be part of this training program, also managers and executive directors of the organizations that are going to be serving or that are going to be participating. And why is that? Because of the reasons mentioned prior, which is that we really need to look at this holistically and be able to work collaboratively. And we want to create that space where folks can really interact with each other, be able to continue to foster building those relationships among different positionalities, being able to connect with each other and really do the thinking together for the organization on how to address some of these retention and recruitment issues, and also racial equity related issues, because they are all connected, as Monica mentioned earlier. And so again, in being able to provide that space, we feel and know that this is really going to create different thinking, new solutions, and a new way of looking at leadership development. And our program is geared towards actually providing 18 months of cohort-based programming, again, for all the participants. I'll pass it on to Monica to explain her program.
Sure, yeah, and I know we're running a little over time on our section, so we'll try to be brief. But what's really interesting in our partnership with CCRH is that we came to the same conclusion at the same time that we needed to create this kind of program that helps focus on mid-career folks and helping them advance. So funny enough, we are also launching NPH's Anti-Racist Champions of Change program, also known as ARC, and it has many of the same elements as you see here. The only slight difference is that we are focusing mostly on mid-career folks, and we're also allowing participants across different departments. So this also includes property management, finance, operations folks across organizations, but all of these elements at the bottom are still the same in our program as well. So we're really excited that we'll be able to have 2 new programs. We'll be able to sort of buddy up a little bit and support each other. So I'm going to go to the next slide to talk a little bit about how we're using these programs to sort of shift the norms in what we see in leadership development. So a lot of these are points that Gisela has already made, that instead of focusing on just training one individual and hoping that they bring that back to their org and transform the org, we want to engage staff from different levels at the organization in clusters so that the organization itself gets an opportunity to learn and people can be in teams representing their organization. So instead of having one participant per org, you're going to have a cluster of folks from each organization participating. Instead of executives just signing off on the participation of their staff, they're actively engaged in almost their own cohort that's going through a parallel track of training at the same time. And then, as we mentioned before, instead of just focusing on technical skills, we're talking about technical and holistic training, which also includes elements of empowerment and healing and coaching and how to help people bring their inherent strengths to the table, rather than approaching it as our current emerging leaders have any sort of deficiency in their skills, really helping to raise up the inherent skills that they already have. So we can go on to the next slide. Go ahead, Isela.
Yes, and so we're looking at transforming leadership in a new era. It's truly that. And again, really focusing on the collaborative approach to management and culture shifts, and sort of flattening the hierarchy that we're used to seeing, making sure and really valuing the existing skills and abilities that emerging leaders bring to the field. For example, cultural competency, racial equity awareness, and other really valuable skills that may be missing, or there's a gap in the organizations that we're working for or working with. And again, really creating opportunities to demonstrate leadership, like I mentioned before, like participating in boards. And so through our internship and leadership programs, we already created an entry point to our field. With the new leadership programs that we are developing, we aim to create organizational culture change and work across departments and learn, and in a way learn together. so that we can really get to making an impact and changing the housing industry in which people really want to stay, and create that kind of environment where folks want to stay and don't leave. Let's go on to the next slide.
Gisela and Monica, we have 1 minute.
Okay, I will make this point brief. So we want to be clear in sharing our work that real change won't come as the result of a single program. So we really need to embed equity, inclusion, and belonging into everything that we do at our organization. So this is just an example of how NPH has really approached transforming the industry, not just with these internship and leadership programs, but how are we making space for racial equity dialogue across executive leaders, across our board. We have our diversity, equity, and inclusion working group, which is a space for members to engage in this work as well. And then we also really am focusing on creating an internal culture of belonging at NPH. We provide resources in our resource library for our members. And then we're also really working on trying to embed an equity lens into our advocacy and policy work. So while we still have a long way to go, I'm just really proud of the framework that we have created in order to approach this really holistically so that real transformational change can happen. So this is just an example of how we're approaching it, but I really encourage everybody else to take a look at how you might want to approach that at your organization. So we'll wrap that up there. And we have our contact info on the next slide, but you can also access that through Whova, whatever you need. We're available to chat. Back to you, Corey.
Thank you so much, Gisela and Monica. We've got 2 questions here for you. The first one is this a full-time internship or part-time? Is pay is at times a barrier to committing to a 1-year internship for students from low-income families that often feel the pressure to finding a job that would help support their family?
Yeah, so the internships are full-time during the summer. So that's 30 to 40 hours a week, and then part-time during the school year to adjust with their school schedule. Though if somebody has already graduated, then they can also usually be a full-time intern the whole way through. And we do offer competitive wages that help to support their families. So similar to what they would be getting at, you know, like a retail job or another sort of minimum wage job. So it's not necessarily it's helping to train them in their careers for the future. So it's more of an investment of time, but sometimes there are challenges to help families understand why this is worth their time. So that's why we have actually adjusted the wages over time to try to keep it as a competitive wage so that our interns can really focus their energy there. But thank you for asking that question, because it's something we're still tinkering with. And also just want to share that even during the pandemic, some of our interns, their households really suffered from the pandemic financially. And so we've been trying to have creative solutions to really support these interns so that they can still participate in the internship, still feel like they're supporting their families financially, but it has been a challenge that we're trying to approach. So yeah. And Ari,
yeah, I'll just add, I mean, I'll be talking about this in a little bit, but Merit has a scholarship program, and every single person that's eligible or that's in the CCRH or BAHIP internship program is also eligible for our scholarship program, which is $10,000, but we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Okay, thank you. Here's another question. It's from Leon Yarena from Mercy. Hello. Have you seen organizations begin to prioritize their commitment to internship programs / recruitment when capacity is often an issue?
I think I can start answering that question by saying that organizations really have to buy into and see the value of doing this. And organizations, when they see that our interns are staying in the field, that they go through this internship program and it's a way for them to create a pipeline of talent. And so, and not only that, but the California Coalition, at least for our program, we do provide a cost share structure where we can support the organization financially in terms of paying that stipend to the intern, and also providing the training component, which is so critical, which we didn't get to mention, but we do provide training throughout the year to support the intern in their learning and their growth, and also provide some kind of support to the supervisors that are actually supervising the intern. and providing the opportunity to connect with other supervisors going through a similar process, and providing the mentoring and supervision to the intern and tools to help with that. And also encouraging that the entire team of the organization, if it is a small organization, that the entire staff and the entire team really it's involved in supervising and mentoring and providing that support to the intern, so it doesn't feel so heavy on just one person or the supervisor alone.
Yeah, that's a great point, Gisela. I think we really try to do the same thing too, especially to foster the interest of the intern in other departments too. We have an intern who started off, really learning about housing development, but discovered an interest in property management. And so helping to expose them to other areas of the organization also helps everybody feel like it's the whole organization's responsibility to support the intern. And also wanted to share that we are selective about the host agencies that actually get to have an intern, because we want to make sure that they have the capacity and the support that's needed. So we have had to turn down organizations that didn't have what we needed, what we were looking for in order to make a successful internship. So yeah, that answers that question.
Thank you. It's a great question. I just want to add that, the greatest internship programs may not be able to solve a foundational capacity issue by capacity, if we're talking about there is too much work to be done for the number of people that you have within the organization. So I think that's where the organizational management shift comes in. I think this is like universal question. This is largely why the Great Resignation is happening. And so this industry certainly doesn't have license over capacity issue, if that's what we're talking about. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Let's, so we did the Q&A. Are we ready for the next presentation? Is it time for another Mentimeter, Monica?
Oh, go for it, Victoria. She's up next.
Okay. Yes, Victoria is, she's gonna tell her personal story. Go for it.
Hello, everyone. I'm Victoria Wong. I'm currently a project manager at MidPenn, a nonprofit regional housing developer in the Bay Area that not only builds homes, but provides services for our residents and manages our communities in the long term. Today, I want to share a little bit about my story. I was born and raised in San Francisco. My parents were immigrants from Hong Kong, and I grew up in a low-income household. I was the first to go to college in my family. And to be honest, I never even thought about what I wanted to major in until I looked at the offerings at the university that I was applying to. I hadn't thought that far ahead, and my parents never asked about it. I kind of just figured it out as I went along. Next slide. Why I chose to major in design with an emphasis in interior architecture, I realized the day-to-day of design and drafting wasn't what I wanted to do. As I was looking for internship opportunities, I stumbled upon a CCRH internship program, and I felt like they had written the program description just for someone like me. I applied and was selected to participate, and my host agency was Mutual Housing California. During my internship year, I got a little taste of what housing development was about, and from learning the alphabet soup of acronyms to participating in construction meetings and working on financing apps and going through the summer training, there was just so much to learn. Next slide. After my internship, I was able to leverage the skills that I learned through that and join MidPenn as a summer intern, helping out on a couple of financing applications, and then had the opportunity to stay and grow. I transitioned to a project associate and then associate project manager, and I had the opportunity to work on many different projects, learn from various project managers, attend both internal and external trainings, and further hone those muscles and skills that were first planted as seeds during my time in the CCRH internship. I really enjoyed the collaborative nature of the work, loved learning new things, and I absolutely could not imagine doing anything else. I thank the stars all the time that I found this special and meaningful work. Next slide. After about 5 years, I transitioned to the role of project manager. My first ever projects are pictured here, Chestnut Square Family and Senior in Livermore. I put all my heart and energy into getting funding for Chestnut Square Family, simultaneously running 9% and 4% tax credit scenarios, working through potential major design changes like removing the subterranean garage, and finally succeeding in securing 9% tax credits off the wait list, and then sped toward construction closing as soon as possible to give us more time for construction in anticipation of the place in service deadline. My first ever closing as a project manager, I closed on the exact date I targeted from the beginning, April 11th. Many of you will understand what a true feat that is. And that closing in particular was a reminder that this is a team effort. And while the work is so hard, there are so many devoted to it, especially in this virtual and in-person room at Housing California. After the closing, I took our 965 Weeks Family Development in partnership with our community development partner, EPA Can Do, and the City of East Palo Alto through the community engagement process and entitlements, and then a state HCD, Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities, ASIC application. And by the ASIC application, I was feeling the strain of sprinting for too long and not having enough breaks, and realized after the fact that I had reached burnout. This also coincided with early 2020. So for the first time ever, I questioned if this is what I really wanted to do, and if there was another job for me that was kinder to my body and mind. Next slide. With the support of my supervisor and Mid-Penn family, I was able to take a breath, lighten my workload, and take some time to evaluate what my personal identity and mission was. I have since recommitted myself to this work, and here are some of the reasons I've decided to stay. There are opportunities to continue to learn and grow, my personal mission in bringing positive change and joy while nurturing relationships and connections, tangible contributions with 350 plus new homes that I had a hand in helping build, and a sense of community. I have learned and grown so much in the last decade, and we continue to learn and grow as an organization and industry. The initiatives to advance a culture of belonging, diversity, equity, and inclusion are meaningful to me. And now this invitation to shift organizational mindset, management mindset shifts is something I see as absolutely necessary to attract new talent and keep our skilled peers in the field doing this work. We bring our whole selves to this work, and we need to consider how we can support each other as a whole. Thank you all for being a part of this conversation and listening to my story.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I would like to ask if folks in the live audience might want to pose a question. Dominic, would you be able to turn the camera on? And is there a way to get questions from the live audience? All right. If you are all right, so the virtual audience, you're of course welcome to put in anything in the Q&A.
When you were in that place of burnout, is there anything that your supervisors did or could have done to help support you in that journey of self-reflection and making sure that this was actually the place that is going to best meet your needs?
Yes, I will say I am very thankful for the supervisors I've had. I am very open. I felt comfortable letting them know when I felt like, I was ready to climb out the window. Like it was just a really tough time. So they were there to not only listen to me, but help me plan ahead. Like I had to, hit the deadline of the ASIC application, get through that piece, but plan ahead for after that, when I had more time and room to make time for myself and that self-reflection, and also like lighten my workload to make that room. I think what would have been helpful is if either me or my supervisor had anticipated this ahead of time and like seeing the trajectory of like all these deadlines and sprints toward expedited things, quick turnarounds that really built to that point of burnout that I realize now that I've gone through it, that, making sure you remind each other to take vacations, to rest, to take that breather and re-energize yourself for own, mental and physical health, I think is really key.
We have another question here in the room, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Hi, this question is about holding organizations accountable for a lack of support of people with lived experience. And so what the question that goes along with that has to do with, it's actually in the Q&A. What can someone with lived experience at like a mid-level range do right now if they want to quit because of burnout? And this is not a self-care question. This is, what do you do to hold your agency accountable so that you don't quit, so that you can use your power for the reason that you are there and not be run off? That's a person who needs support.
Go ahead, Victoria. Yeah, if you have an answer.
Oh, I just have a thought. I might not be the answer, so I'll share my thought and you can go, Monica. I think it does depend on a specific organization relationship. I think it is important to speak to either your direct supervisor or the head of your department, whoever might be able to provide you with the support needed to ensure that you can stay in your role and continue this important work. Because, I know folks might not have that conversation, just decide, this is the last straw, it's enough, and leave. Like that's the issue we're seeing, like that is too hard, we're not getting the support and we're losing, wonderful people. So I do think having that open communication would be key. Monica?
Yeah, I was gonna say in cases like those, having that sort of cohort of people to help you out, of peers who are going through the same thing, that's what gets so critical, because oftentimes we feel like we're the only ones suffering. And I've seen some great examples at other organizations where folks who were a little bit more like the frontline staff, they actually started talking to each other and realized that there was a lack of like salary transparency in the organization, or just that there were policies that didn't make sense. And so they were actually able to sort of band together as staff that have that in common and be able to speak to leadership about that and try to get that change. So it's almost like a mini protest kind of vibe, but as long as you can have people, in your organization or even outside of your organization, that's what's really wonderful about us being at sort of this regional scale and seeing different organizations and better examples of how to do these things. We're able to sort of connect people to say like, well, let's lift up this example of what this organization is doing, because we actually feel like they're doing this thing right. So we can sort of use that kind of peer pressure to help organizations do better. And then I really feel like a lack of retention is such a telling point for organizations that they need to pay attention to that more. And I'm not really sure how to make that more visible, that like if you're having high turnover, that's telling you something about your organization. I feel like we need to speak about that more as a community. And so let's just keep being squeaky wheels there, because I really feel like that needs to be addressed. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, but at least it's a start.
I second both of you. I think this is a longer conversation. Thank you so much for asking that question. That took some courage, I know this. So yes, please stay to the end and answer, get the survey link. And also, if you like, please reach out to any of us. I would personally love to talk more. Okay, I think we're might have to scrap the Mentimeter polls that we had and then get Ari to do his presentation.
Sure.
Please, thank you.
So first of all, I want to say amend to what was said before, and I think cohorts are very powerful tools in terms of helping your career and doing well, and when it's the right time to potentially moving on. So you can move to the next slide. So, to give you kind of a quick picture, so Marriott Community Capital is a mission-based funder of affordable housing in California. So we're a nonprofit, we're syndicated, we invest in tax credits, and we've been around for about 30 years. We're really known as a trusted partner in this space, where we kind of roll up our sleeves and work with mission-aligned developers and funders to do the really, really challenging projects and to kind of stand next to you when things go wrong. Kind of the best example of that is Paradise Community Village, which burnt down with the rest of the city of Paradise, and Marriott kind of stood by CHIP to make sure that project was developed. But we're really here as kind of a long-term partner, and we're really mission aligned with you guys as organizations. And our goal is to kind of build housing today and make sure that it remains affordable in perpetuity. So in addition to kind of our business, we're really a social enterprise, right? Where we're investing in projects. We also are really dedicated to supporting the people and policies that shape the industry. And so we are investing heavily kind of in this area that we're talking about right now, which is really people. And that's why we launched our commitment to California this past year. So you can turn to the next slide. So I spoke about this a little bit before, but Marriott's investing about $2.5 million over the next 3 years to educate, train, and support about 800 professionals. And so we're a funder of BAHIP, we're a funder of CCRH, we're a funder of really every single program in the state right now that is kind of educating and training and supporting the next generation of leaders. And it's something that is deeply important to Marriott. The other organizations here are really kind of more regional. I mean, we're a statewide organization and we want to support the entire state. And we've talked a little bit about how we compete a little bit. I would say we are in a great industry with great people, and we have lots of problems. And every industry has lots of problems, but we're better than most. We really are, everyone I think really likes being. We should feel proud. So we should talk about all the things that we need to fix, but we should recognize that we're doing a lot of good work and that we're better than most. And that's why when you talk about kind of burnout, people leaving the industry, we're really focused about it because we really care. Our burnout and turnover is much less than most other industries. So we just we should be aware of that. So the funding that we're doing over the next 3 years, kind of support professionals, really kind of focused on equity, diversity, and inclusion. And so that goes through all of our programs. We have three prongs. I'm going to talk about one really right now, but one is kind of the scholarship, Merit Scholars, which I'm going to get into a little bit. The other one is trainings, which is kind of tripling the size of HTI, and then the internships and career developments with our partners across the state. If you can move to the next slide. To the next slide after that. So we really sat back and we said, what does the industry need, right? And Marriott does not believe in reinventing the wheel by any stretch of the imagination. There are great organizations doing absolutely great work in the state. We're talking to 2 of them right now, right? Scan from TCRH, I'm so sorry, Monica, NPH. I know.
That's okay, Ari, I forgive you.
Yeah, NPH and CCRH are best. I mean, and CCRH has been doing this for a long time and doing it really well. And it's too bad it's taken so long for it to expand. And actually, Marriott's trying to help expand this program across the state. So, but when we looked at what are our needs within this industry, so you have to attract people, right? You have to train them. You have to retain them. Right, so the attraction, the internship program is one way of attraction. Kind of like training is HTI, and retention has to do with ELPN and lots of other programs funding. But what was really lacking was a scholarship program, because I think someone put how did you enter this industry? Some people had a class, graduate program. Some people just did it totally by accident. I can tell you that I fell into this industry. I'm so happy that I did, but it was luck of the draw. It was simply because you know, I was not a real fit for you know, real finance, kind of like high finance, something I was good at, but not something I wasn't passionate about. Making rich people richer is the bottom line. And so someone said, hey, this you know, you can help with affordable housing. It's like, wow, I can use all my skills and I can do great work, and that's exciting. Move to the next slide. So we basically did an analysis of what was necessary, right? And so mostly what we do is we fund great organizations that do great work. And then, you know, we noticed that there really was not an entry point, a scholarship program in the state. And so Merit's had a small one for the past, you know, 15 years, where we've worked with SF State as well as Cal State East Bay to try to attract people in the industry. And we sat down, we did an analysis of all like the 50 people that received the scholarship over our period. And we found out that only 10% of the people that received the scholarship actually joined the industry. But the people who did join the industry had a couple things in common. They had worked in the industry before, they had internships, and they had mentors. So we said, great, that, you know, we all kind of came to this different place. So all those best practices that we talked about before about what was successful, we did some analysis, we got to the same place, right? So we've now created a scholarship, which is statewide for undergraduate and graduate students. We are partnering with the Cal State and Cal Poly system. That's really from a DI perspective. We wanted to partner with the schools, but any student in California who's undergraduate, graduate can apply for this program, provided you on this session provide them a recommendation. So if you know people within your organizations, or that you just know people you've had informational interviews with who are really excited about affordable housing, because you work in this industry, you can help them get a $10,000 scholarship. And that scholarship also includes a one-on-one mentorship opportunity. And one thing we're actually gonna be doing, by the way, is asking if there anyone here would like to be our mentors, but we're trying to find people kind of a couple years out of school to kind of be mentors. But so we tried a $10,000 scholarship, a mentorship opportunity, and then really focused on opportunities for network, the opportunity to kind of meet all of you, and you know, and so we're bringing people to conferences and like, and for you to talk about the programs. And then at the end of the program, you know, my goal is to get to know everyone, as well as we're hoping our mentors and other people are participating in it. And the goal is literally to pick up the phone and say, hey, Monica, there's this really great person. I realize they may not, you know, they might not go to a school that you normally recruit from, but they'd be great in this industry. Please hire them. And so that's what we're doing. We're going to increase this program by about 3 times over the next, 4 times in the next 3 years. So if you go to the next slide. So yeah, so just the quick numbers. The deadline is April 17th. So please, if you know anyone, you can go by the Merit booth and you can pick up a flyer about it. Please ask them to apply. As I said, the students either have to be part of the Cal State system or Cal Poly, or they need one of you to provide a recommendation. And then there is a requirement for a demonstrated interest in affordable housing. So you can't just say that you're interested in affordable housing, because we found people who just said it ultimately didn't join the industry. And it's open for anyone who's going to be enrolled in a California school in fall 2022, and that you can be part-time or you can be full-time. So there's probably lots of people within your organizations who are going to school part-time who would be eligible for this program, and we'd love to fund them. So I think that's it. Oh, yes, of course. And then you can go to our website, you can learn more about it, and please let us know if you want to be a mentor or refer everyone and grab me. And you know, this is the great thing about our industry, is that people really do want to help one another. People really do want to keep people in this industry. It's really rewarding, and hopefully you can help us in many of the programs that we have here be successful and really help build a bigger and better industry. So that's it.
Ari, thank you so much. Yeah, for your commitment as a funder to the people part for the sector. We are becoming short on time. Dominic, is there a way to share that link? I just dropped the survey link. It's really, the survey link actually includes ways you can raise your hand to be a mentor in any of those programs that we've been talking about. So that's in the chat, but if it's possible to show to the, share also with the folks in the room, that would be great. And let's quickly do the last Mentimeter poll, Monica.
Great. Thanks, Rhoda, for sharing. If I can jump in to share my, thank you. Perfect. So we have 2 last questions. It's the same Mentimeter link that you had before. So what do you most need to thrive in this industry? And I'm even wondering, for the sake of time, should we just actually skip to the last question, which might give a more, oh, never mind, we're getting answers. Never mind.
I think this is a good one.
Okay.
I really like this one.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Cheerleaders. I love it.
Love it. That's what we're going to do with our fellowships.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great. So we're saving this, right, Monica?
Yes,
That's
I
great.
get to save, yes. That's a great question. Even salary and career trajectory across departments, mentorship, an attorney. Okay. Mutuality. Great.
Wonderful. So I'm just gonna try and just talk through my last one while this is on the screen. Please keep it there. So I would like to repeat the call of shifting as a sector, their potentials to knit the different pieces that if you have to address organizational management separately from DEI and to recruitment and retention, I think it's just enough to overwhelm any of us. Just a reminder that we all joined the sector to do good work. And we believe that our future lies with leaders that represent the communities that our organizations serve. And here's the pitch to please fill out the Google form to keep connected to this conversation. We really wanted to take a temperature on who's interested in talking more about this and get more info on the coming programs from NPH and CCRH, and there might be other organizations doing similar things, and volunteer as a mentor and enter your suggestions. Either there's a catch-all question in the form. You could tell us in the form. Okay. How are we doing?
I think we have enough time for the next question if we want to jump to that one.
Great, let's do it.
Right.
Yeah,
Sure,
so,
put the
I mean,
other
this
link
is,
in the chat.
yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I think we had heard a comment from the live room, but I think they're okay though.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to move on to this next question. How might your ED or CEO effectively support staff growth? So we want to make sure that we're holding executive leadership accountable for their role in creating, better work culture, thinking about leadership in a different way, shifting their mindsets. Listen, yes, that's
I would just like to say for the execs in the room, this is what support could look like, right? Like it's hard to ask questions like this. It might be. And it actually, even if you ask those questions, you may or may not get quality or actionable answers. It really depends on what's going on at your organization. We just wanted to see what folks in this room might say about this. And I noticed that it took a moment for folks to take it in, but you're responding. I'm very excited to see this.
I want to highlight this one. Take a vacation.
Vacation.
You model work-life balance. Too often I see executives say, don't do what I'm doing. But no, we look at you for how effective leadership looks. So you also have to model the work-life balance as well. So we know that it's possible.
Yeah. So this might quickly start to feel overwhelming too. So please, it's just a slice from this group, right? It is fascinating. Oh, the point about, yeah, multitasking. Our brains are actually not made for multitasking. Oh, safety is.
I think we're at time. I'm going to stop sharing, but go ahead, back
Yeah.
to you, Corey, to wrap us up.
It's time. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. In the interest of time, we respect your time. We're just very happy that you came and interacted with us. And please tell us what you thought in the survey. We really hope you can do it. I think I'll just show in Hova too. Thank you. Have a great lunch.
Thank
See
you.
you around. Yeah. Talk to us. Please stop us and continue the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And fellow
Thanks
panelists.
all.
Yes, thanks. This is a
Thank
great
you.
team.